Hello again. Something which interests me is that circumcision is one of those subjects which often crops up when people wish to express their dislike or mistrust of Jews and Judaism. Viewers might have noticed it being raised in the comments here in that context. The reason that I find this intriguing is that the majority of American men are circumcised, whether they are Jewish or not. And for some years after the end of the Second World War, the situation was pretty much the same in Britain. In other words, the link between circumcision and Judaism in the Western world ended around 1945, but an awful lot of people don't seem to have noticed. Complaining about the practice and describing it as, say, male genital mutilation is still one of those things like objecting to kosher slaughter that often crop up when anti-Semites get going. As I say, from the late 1940s onwards, most men in America and Britain were circumcised. It was one of those unnecessary surgical procedures like removing the tonsils which enjoyed a vogue at that time. It was so prevalent in the mid-1970s that when I had an American girlfriend, she told me that I was the first uncircumcised man she had ever encountered. Even today, well over half the boys born in the United States are circumcised, although this is a lot less common now in Britain. It might have something to do with the fact that the NHS can barely keep up with proper operations, let alone carrying out such pointless procedures routinely. When the craze for circumcision hit Britain after the end of the war, quite a few people arranged to have it done privately. And guess who they employed to do it? Yes, that's right, rabbis. Here's a fun fact. Prince Charles is circumcised, and that operation was performed on him by a rabbi. The guy who carried out the procedure for the royal family was called Jacob Snowman, and he gained much kudos in the Jewish community for doing so. He was a qualified doctor, but also a mohel, which is an authorised Jewish circumciser. Mohels are traditionally accorded the title of rabbi, so it was in this capacity that he circumcised the heir to the throne. There are, of course, some medical advantages to circumcision for both men and their wives. Cancer of the penis is very rare, but it never ever occurs in circumcised men. Cancer of the cervix in women is more common, and that never occurs in either nuns or the wives of Jewish men, as long as a woman was a virgin before the marriage. This is connected with a carcinogenic substance which accumulates beneath foreskins and is wholly absent in men who have been circumcised. One of the things which I find interesting is that although circumcision is, like kosher slaughter, one of those things which anti-Semites go on about, nobody talks much about Muslims in that connection, although it's mandated in Islam just as much as in Judaism. In Islam, though, there is no traditional time when the procedure should be performed. In Judaism, the Brit, or circumcision, takes place on the 8th day after the boy is born, but for Muslims it can be left for years. I once attended a circumcision celebration as well in a Turkish village of a 9-year-old boy. This was done in public and without anaesthetic, and in what I can only describe as less than optimal conditions of hygiene. The village didn't, for example, have running water other than the nearby stream. I am, by the way, well aware that there are a few mohels who hold to very out-of-date beliefs about circumcision. In New York, for instance, there's a guy who thinks that the best way of stopping the bleeding and preventing infection is to put the baby's penis in his mouth after the circumcision has been done. Yuck. Although there is, of course, justification in the Talmud for the practice, he's the only person I've ever heard who does this, and he's regarded even amongst the ultra-orthodox as a bit of a crank.